I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Laura Kyrke-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am so pleased to have the opportunity tonight to share my pride in the rural areas of my constituency of Aylesbury, to share my admiration for those who work on the land and care for it, and to set out how we can enable both our urban and rural communities and our natural environment to thrive. I'm grateful to the Minister for being here. I bring forward this debate in part to reassure my constituents of my own and my government's commitment to protecting our natural environment and safeguarding our agricultural land. This is a subject of debate in my constituency, as this new government takes forward the planning reforms that are so necessary for our future growth. But after 14 years of deep turbulence and decline with damaging consequences for nature and for our communities, I would also suggest a better way forward, rooted in clear principles, more predictability, and a dose of pragmatism. First, let me turn to how we protect and enhance our natural environment. And to give some context from my constituency, we're in a beautiful part of the country, including the Chiltern Hills and historic woodlands and waterways, with 14% of the constituency designated as greenbelt land. But we're also subject to extensive house building under the last government, more than 13,000 new homes and counting in the last 10 years, which has created great pressures on services and infrastructure, but also on our natural environment. My constituents understand the urgency of addressing our national housing crisis. The statistics speak for themselves. Nearly 1.3 million households on social housing waiting lists, including more than 6,000 households in Buckinghamshire. Young people under 30 today are less than half as likely to own a home than young adults in the 1990s. Equally, many of my constituents understand the need for investment in renewable energy, whether that's onshore wind or solar panels, to get us on track for clean, secure and more affordable power by 2030. But they and I are conscious of the tension between the need for planning reform, whether that's to build houses or energy or other infrastructure, and the need to protect our natural environment. So how do we navigate that tension? I'd like to make 3 points based on Aylesbury's experience. First, we need to ensure that clear environmental safeguards are embedded in planning policy. To this end, the proposed changes to the National Planning Policy Framework are strong. For example, the emphasis on a brownfield-first approach, using previously developed land for new housing and therefore protecting green spaces. The introduction of greybelt land, which of course needs tight definition, but ultimately should enable a more strategic approach to building on certain types of green space. And the golden rules in the NPPF, of course, that ensure that any greenbelt building will bring benefits for nature and for community access to green space. This will be a welcome contrast to the haphazard raids on greenbelt and greenfield sites under the last government. In Buckinghamshire as a whole, for example, 11% of new residential addresses between 2019 and 2022 were built in designated areas of outstanding natural beauty, compared to a 4% national average. So this building has been happening, and my constituents tell me the rationale for it hasn't always been clear. Second, we need to learn from pockets of good practice where they do exist. I can point to one example in Aylesbury, the Kingsbrook development on the edge of town, where housing and nature now coexist well. Kingsbrook was built in conjunction with the RSPB, and it includes 250 acres of wildlife-rich open space with hedgehog highways and community allotments. I'd invite the government to visit and learn from examples like this. And where it isn't possible for developments to include this much green space, we need to ensure there is ready access to nature nearby. As an Aylesbury Ramblers Association member recently reminded me as he spoke about his battle with the council to keep footpaths in and out of Aylesbury clear. And third, of course, it's vital that where nature must be protected, we do this, and we don't just protect, but we strengthen and enhance it. I've seen wonderful examples of this in my constituency. The work that the Chiltern Society does with their 700 volunteers, for example, to sow wildflowers or to clear more than 30,000 metres of footpaths and 2,000 miles of cycle paths and bridle paths in the last year alone. But in recent years, it's felt like they're working against, not with, the successive governments that have shown very little regard for nature. This is perhaps best exemplified in my constituency by the release of sewage into the rivers, 3,000 hours last year alone, with devastating consequences for nature. I'm pleased by the early work of our government to review the Environmental Improvement Plan, paving the way, we hope, towards the ambitious global goal of safeguarding 30% of our land and sea by 2030. But of course, this is just the start, and the test will be whether these safeguards are indeed in place in constituencies like Aylesbury across the country. Now, let me turn to our agricultural land. Of course, the NPPF rightly contains protections for the best and most versatile agricultural land too. But ultimately, protecting and strengthening agricultural land means supporting the farmers who steward and manage it. I've spoken to many farmers in my constituency, including at a brilliant visit to Ledburn Farm on the Ascot estate, a producer of the wheat for my kids' Weetabix. I know farmers have been under great pressure in recent years from weather events, disease, economic volatility, Brexit, rising energy costs, rising rural crime, you name it. But I also know they work incredibly hard to keep putting food on our tables. I will.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I commend the Honourable Lady for Aylesbury for bringing this forward? And she's absolutely right to highlight the issue for farmers. The member may not be aware that my constituency is one of the few rich agricultural land areas that can produce 3 potato crops a year. It is essential that we ensure that farmers can and do make the most of this possibility, not simply in lush Strangford and my constituency, but also in Aylesbury and across this great United Kingdom. Does the Honourable Lady not agree that we need a DEFRA to be engaged with grassroots farming to support farmers and ease the way and thereby ensure that we increase food security within the United Kingdom and at the same time protect our agricultural land? The Minister's in place, no better person to do just that.
Thank you, and I do agree that supporting smallholder farmers is absolutely essential. And there's too much to say really on this in the time that we have tonight. But I wanted to pull out 3 particularly important ways to help set up our farmers for success. First and foremost, we have to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of British farming. I know, for example, that the environment land management schemes have been unclear and difficult to navigate and poorly tailored to different contexts. In the case of Ledburn Farm, the heavy clay land. And as a result, the uptake has been low. But farmers remain in need of this support, and we have to find a way to make it easier to access. Equally, farmers are forging ahead and finding ways to diversify their income, but there's much more we can do to support this too. For example, making it much easier to change the use of existing farm buildings or to develop lower grade agricultural land if it creates renewable energy sources or affordable housing for farm workers, for example. Second, we have to promote and support farmers to roll out sustainable farming practices that address challenges like soil erosion or low land productivity. For example, by supporting the farmer clusters that have become increasingly prevalent across Buckinghamshire, which bring together farmers to help explore best practice and share ideas for enhancing natural habitats on their land. And third, we need to invest in the next generation of British farmers. This means ensuring that we give the profession the status that it deserves in the first place, and that we start educating children about it at a very young age. This means creating pathways into the farming sector, for example, through investing in specialist technical education and expanding agriculture apprenticeships. It means making it not just attractive, but affordable to live in rural communities and to pursue a career in farming, particularly in somewhere like Buckinghamshire, where there's far too little affordable rural housing and services, and the pull to towns is too strong as a result. In short, we can put all the necessary protections in place for quality agricultural land, and I'm confident we will, but without a thriving farming sector to safeguard it, to safeguard that land, it will have little impact. Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituency has suffered from the absence of a coherent strategy for our land, where and how we protect it, where and how we use it, where and how we develop it. Recent governments have left nature depleted, farmers deeply uncertain at best and out of business already at worst, and communities frustrated by haphazard house building without access to green spaces or infrastructure or services. Under this government, the future has to look different. We have to start with clear principles, and alongside the NPPF, the new land use framework will surely help, ensuring that we get that right balance between food production, nature, and economic growth. We need more predictability. Of course, external shocks will happen, but the role of government is to be a steadying force. It's great that we've got to work quickly on the first steps, whether that's planning reform or setting up GB Energy, and I think we can look forward to a steady, focused rollout. And finally, we need a good deal of pragmatism and acceptance that getting the balance right between development and environmental protection isn't easy, and there will be compromises, but it's necessary. We have to find a way to both build the homes and infrastructure of the future and protect and regenerate our agricultural and nature-rich lands, because ultimately one cannot exist without the other. Thank you.
It is highly unusual for other members to contribute in adjournment debate because it is about a conversation between the lead member, the member for Aylesbury, but I believe that you have sought permission, but it is still highly unusual, so I assume the contribution will be short before the Minister responds. Polly Billington.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and thank you very much for your permission to speak in this debate. I wanted to support, but in particular, the representations from my honourable friend, because some of the things that she raises are also relevant to me and across to my constituents and across the country. As my honourable friend has said, the case for more genuinely affordable homes is clear. That is accepted in my community as much, if not more so in hers, as so many people struggle in the private sector and house prices spiral due to the pressure of unregulated short-term holiday lets, driven by a huge desire by many people, understandably, to enjoy the delights of Margate, Broadstairs and Ramsgate. We need new homes. I've spoken to far too many people in their 30s and older, living in their childhood bedrooms, sometimes with a partner, desperate to be able to start their lives in a home of their own, priced out of their own community. We also desperately need the infrastructure to support the families who will live in those homes, and we need to protect and enhance the nature, not only that we love, but that is essential to our own economy and well-being and future. Now, I came to this House, Madam Deputy Speaker, to change the rules, although I do observe the ones that you enforce in this House. It is clear the current rules do not serve our needs for homes or our need for protecting and enhancing nature. They do not enable the right infrastructure to be built, nor do they effectively help us identify and protect our vital farmland. Those who protect the status quo in this argument are condemning our country to failure. Those who think any of these four elements, homes, farming, nature or infrastructure, including energy, should drop off the list of our priorities, don't understand the importance of us shaping our communities to benefit our residents now and for the long term. Madam Deputy Speaker, nature is not just a nice to have. It is fundamental to us in achieving our economic, health and climate goals. In Thanet, people literally come to see and enjoy our natural world. Damaging nature, where it is a vital part of the economy, is short-sighted and dangerous. We also have some of the most productive farmland in the whole of the UK, and yet the existing planning rules do not protect it from speculation and development. Access to nature is proven to enhance health and well-being. The successes of previous Labour governments in creating access to nature for everyone are some of our proudest achievements. And furthermore, responsible custodianship of our natural environment, especially precious ecosystems, is vital to capturing, sequestering and reducing carbon emissions. By 2050, the sixth carbon budget predicts we will need to be removing 39 megatons of CO2 per year via nature-based solutions, more than double what we do today. That includes wetlands, woodlands and peatlands. They are both beautiful and useful. This Labour government was elected on a mandate to transform us to be a clean energy superpower by 2030 and to restore and protect 30% of nature by 2030. We cannot achieve these goals, Madam Deputy Speaker, under the current rules. That is why I look forward to us publishing a land use framework that helps us decide what we use land for, and will help us shape our communities and our country to meet our ambitions to be somewhere with affordable homes to rent or own and run, affordable sustainable food, affordable, secure, homegrown clean energy, decent public services, and our beloved countryside, providing us with the peace and climate security we all need.
Minister Daniel Zeichner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and my thanks also to my honourable friend, the member for Aylesbury, for securing today's debate and delivering such an excellent and thoughtful speech and speaking so eloquently about her lovely constituency, but also, like my honourable friend, the member for East Thanet, teasing out some of those challenges, particularly around housing and around the importance of nature, because nature underpins everything, from our personal well-being to our economy, but the truth is that nature is in crisis, which is why this government is committed to charting a new course and ensuring nature is truly on the road to recovery. Now, ensuring nature's recovery is one of my department's 5 key priorities, alongside cleaning up our rivers, lakes and seas, moving to a zero-waste economy, supporting farmers to boost our food security and protecting communities from flooding. And it's nature's recovery that will support and complement these other priorities and contribute to the government's central mission for economic growth. Now, my honourable friend, the member for Aylesbury, raised the important issue of planning reforms. This government is determined to transform the planning system to ensure a win-win for house building and for nature. Nature recovery is a top priority alongside the need to overhaul the planning system to grow the economy and to reach net zero. It's not a matter of choosing one of these priorities over another. Sustained economic growth depends upon a healthy natural environment. Now, the Secretary of State has already confirmed that the government is undertaking a rapid review of the Environmental Improvement Plan. Our review will make sure that it's fit for purpose to deliver on our legally binding Environment Act targets and international commitment to protect 30% of England's land and sea by 2030. So this debate is extremely timely, and I will seek to address and respond to the points raised earlier. To restore nature, we need to create, restore and connect wildlife-rich habitat at scale, reduce pressure on species, including from pollution and climate change, and take targeted action to recover specific species. This government will deliver for nature, working in partnership with civil society, communities and businesses to restore and protect our natural world, and working with farmers and landowners to deliver nature recovery will be crucial, which is why we are fully committed to the environmental land management schemes. Happy to give way.
Thank you, Minister, very much for giving way. I wonder if he would be keen to meet with some of my constituents who are being threatened by the actions of EDF and Hinkley Point C, who wish to create salt marsh on land that is farmed at the moment in North Somerset. And that's causing a huge amount of distress to people locally, including young Sophie Cole, whom I met this weekend, who has just started on her path as a young farmer. She's 28, and she and all of the villagers in Kingston Seymour are very, very keen to make sure that the Minister understands the tensions between the creation of salt marsh at the behest of Hinkley and their natural desire to carry on their hundreds of years of farming.
Yeah.
Well, I thank her for her intervention, and I'd be very happy to learn more about the issues she's raised. Now, this government will optimise the environmental land management schemes so they produce the right outcomes for all farmers while delivering food security and nature recovery in a just and equitable way. We will confirm plans for the rollout of schemes and our wider approach as soon as possible. ELM schemes, including the Sustainable Farming Incentive, Countryside Stewardship and Landscape Recovery, will contribute to the biodiversity targets at scale through supporting nature-friendly farming and creating and restoring wildlife-rich habitats. And they'll also help restore and improve the condition of protected sites, including sites of special scientific interest. From this year, ELM agreements are expected to bring or maintain up to 480,000 hectares of eligible SSSI habitat in England under favourable management, and to create or restore up to 300,000 hectares of wildlife-rich habitat, in addition to up to 200,000 hectares of peat and woodland by 2042. In addition to the action we'll take to recover nature through creating and restoring habitat, we'll also take action to protect effectively wildlife-rich habitats and species. Now, this protection is crucial as species are in decline. This includes our important farmland species, including farmland birds such as the turtle dove, which has declined in the UK by 97% since 1994. However, where nature-friendly farmers and major partners such as the RSPB, Wildlife Trusts and the National Trust have put the right ELM measures in the right places, we have seen increases in a number of scarce farmland bird species such as chough, searle bunting and stone curlew. Our work to protect nature will include action to restore our protected sites, which are vital wildlife havens facing increasing pressures from climate change, pollution and invasive non-native species. Natural England is working to get protected sites into favourable condition. That includes piloting new powers to put in place protected site strategies to deliver improvements in partnership with others, and working with the SSSI Major Landowners Group to develop landscape-scale approaches. Natural England are also working with farmers through the Catchment Sensitive Farming Programme to improve water and air quality on farms around protected sites. This includes helping farmers to secure funding to make management changes to improve their condition. Now, we'll also protect our most beautiful landscapes and help our national parks and national landscapes become wilder, greener and more accessible to all as we deliver our commitment to protect 30% of land for nature by 2030. Very happy to.
I'm grateful to the Minister. He's talking about partnerships, and one of the key partners in restoring nature is, of course, small family farms. I've heard it speculated that in the budget on Wednesday there might be the removal of agricultural property relief on inheritance tax. Of course, the Minister won't be able to comment on the budget, which I'll have to wait till Wednesday for. But if somebody was to float such an idea, would he combat that?
He's not going to tempt me. He'll have to wait until Wednesday, I'm afraid. One of the key criteria for land to contribute to our 30 by 30 commitment is protection, as areas counting towards that should be protected from loss or damage to important biodiversity. Land contributing towards 30 by 30 should be secured for long enough to secure good biodiversity outcomes, generally for at least 20 years. Some areas, including those under intensive farming, are not suitable for 30 by 30, but our approach recognises that nature-friendly land uses may be able to play a role in supporting our goal. I will.
That we don't often see referred to, and it's a bit of a disappointment that it isn't, and that's the good work that wildfowling clubs do across this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. They rent and own salt marshes, they own land as well, and they manage it in a way that the wildlife can and plant life can blossom. But it's done in partnership with many landowners, it's done in partnership with Natural England, it's done in partnership with many people. Would the Minister recognise the good work that wildfowling clubs do and their contribution to a better life as well? Thank you.
Of course, I'll join him in recognising their role, as I do many others who play important roles in the countryside. Now, this government also places great importance upon our agricultural land and food production. The National Planning Policy Framework sets out how the best and most versatile agricultural land should be reflected in planning policies and decisions, and the framework is clear that where significant development of agricultural land is necessary, areas of poorer quality land should be preferred to those of a higher quality. Meeting our ambitious targets on nature restoration alongside our priorities on food security and accelerating to net zero will require careful thought about how we use our land, which is why the forthcoming land use framework for England will consider cross-governmental issues such as energy and food security and how we can expand nature-rich habitats such as wetlands, peat bogs and forests. Now, in conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, the 16th UN Biodiversity Summit is currently underway in Colombia, where the importance of biodiversity and ensuring we achieve our national targets and international commitments will once again be in the spotlight. The government has also recently appointed Ruth Davis as the UK's first envoy for nature, who will champion our ambition to put nature at the heart of our foreign policy and help us deliver on our commitments for nature's recovery. So let me finish by thanking my honourable friend, the member for Aylesbury, for securing today's debate, and I look forward to working closely with her and with others to ensure that we begin making real progress on this government's priorities, nature recovery and boosting our food security.
Well, that concludes the adjournment debate. The question is that this House do now adjourn, and many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Order, order.